Time for us to get a quick digest of what happened while we were sleeping. This is the Wells Report front page. The Hunter Biden plea deal evaporates in confusion yesterday. This from USA Today. Hunter Biden's legal thriller continues after a federal judge refused to accept a plea deal for his tax evasion charges because of a last-minute bit of drama over the fine print. U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Noreika wanted more time to study a deal that began the day with a promise to cap a 5-year federal investigation and ended with a cliffhanger rather than riding off into the sunset. Noreika told Biden, quote, "I know you want to get this over with, and I am sorry, but I want to be careful," unquote. The decision added a twist to the long-running legal saga of criminal, civil, and Republican congressional investigations of Biden and his father, the president. It's very unusual for a plea deal to collapse like this in front of a judge, but that's not unusual in these kinds of cases, where concern over the ultimate sentence to be imposed may exist because a defendant could potentially be the subject of investigations in multiple jurisdictions. That, according to Joe Valenti, a former federal counterterrorism analyst who is now a partner at Saul Ewing. The White House claims that Hunter Biden is a private citizen. That didn't necessarily meet with welcoming arms by the mainstream media or nearly anyone else. Fox News reports that White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, her insistence that Hunter Biden is a private citizen amidst his legal troubles, drew criticism immediately on social media. After Hunter's plea deal fell through earlier that morning, reporters were eager to question the press secretary on his ongoing legal woes. However, at the top of the press briefing, Jean-Pierre remarked that she would refer journalists to Hunter's legal team and reminded them that he is a private citizen. Here's the quote. "I know many people have been following the news in Delaware today." Let's see. What have I done here? There seems to be a lack of video on this, and I don't know why. Let me double check something here. Yeah, I'm sorry, but for those people watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, there seems to be a video issue. We'll get to that coming up here in just a couple of seconds, okay? But let's continue with the news. The quote from Karine Jean-Pierre: "I know that many people have been following the news in Delaware today, and we're going to have a lot of questions. And so here's what I'll say at the top before I turn it over to my colleague, the Admiral. Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and this was a personal matter for him. As we have said, the president, the first lady, they love their son. They support him as he continues to rebuild his life." Attorney for the IRS whistleblower urges special counsel after Hunter Biden deal collapses. This from Fox News. Mark Lytle is the attorney for IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley. He called for a special counsel to investigate the Biden family hours after Biden's plea deal fell apart. The first son was expected to plead guilty to 2 counts of willful failure to pay federal income tax and 1 count of possession of a firearm by a person who was an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance. But Judge Mary Ellen Noreika did not accept the plea agreement, questioning the constitutionality of it, specifically the diversion clause and the immunity that Hunter Biden would receive. After prosecutors said that Hunter Biden pled guilty to the 2 misdemeanor tax offenses, would not immunize him from future changes, he wound up pleading not guilty after his defense attorney said, "No, we are not going to agree to that." Lytle told Fox News he believes the testimony of IRS whistleblowers Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler played a role in Judge Mary Ellen Noreika's decision to reject the plea deal. Representatives Lee and Kiley spoke to Newsmax. They said they can't trust Alejandro Mayorkas on border crossing information. Americans cannot take Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' word on illegal border crossing statistics, said Representative Laura Lee of Florida. It's important to understand that they've converted to using a new app that processes people who are crossing the border, lets them into our country, and then fails to track or have any consequences if they don't show up for a future court date, said Lee. Wednesday, minutes before Mayorkas testified before the House Judiciary Committee on Border Crossings. So we have a lot of questions about the reality of those numbers and whether they will in fact be borne out by evidence and data. The Biden administration said yesterday they touted their June decline in border crossings, attributing the drop to new policies. Mayorkas accused of lying under oath, playing a shell game with data. This from a former border official. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas faced tough questions from House Republicans as critics accuse him of providing false or misleading information to Congress. Former acting ICE Director Tom Homan argued on Fox News yesterday that Mayorkas is unaware of how many people are actually crossing the southern border and that the secretary is lying about the scope of the crisis. He's not telling Congress, the American people, exactly what he's doing. He's lying to the American people, and he's lying to Congress under oath, said Homan. The fireworks came as a part of a House Judiciary Committee on the department, which has been at the center of the handling of the ongoing crisis at the southern border in its third year. Witnesses are calling for increased military transparency on UFOs. Many people say that that's long overdue. 3 former military members, all of whom have previously spoken public about their firsthand knowledge of reported encounters with strange and mysterious flying objects, appeared yesterday before Congress for a hearing on the national security threats such phenomena could pose. Their testimony before the U.S. House came at a time of mounting bipartisan pressure on the executive branch of government and the military to release more information about so-called unidentified anomalous phenomena, formerly known as unidentified flying objects. Across more than 2 hours of testimony, the 3 witnesses also provided accounts before the House Oversight Committee's National Security Subcommittee of their understanding for how the federal government has handled or suppressed reports of strange encounters documented by pilots. State news today out of Florida. A new slavery curriculum in Florida is the latest in a century of undermining history. This is being talked about by Bernard Powers. He is a historian at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. Last week, Florida announced a new curriculum that mirrored the rhetoric from more than a century ago, including lessons on how slaves developed skills for personal benefit. Florida's new education plan is the most recent example of a long history of the United States failure to adequately represent the institution of slavery and lingering effects that enslaved humans had on modern society. That is a quote from Bernard Powers. All of this undermines quality education. He continued, "We are losing valuable opportunities to cultivate the critically important skills that our young people need to think deeply and to be able to reach their own conclusions and analyze events and circumstances." Powers serves as the director for the Center of Study of Slavery at the College of Charleston, where he and his staff research the impacts of slavery, work that doesn't end in 1865 and the 13th Amendment. We look at the legacy of slavery. Out of Washington State, Seattle schools officials say parents should not be notified of a pronoun change regardless of age. This from Fox News. A top official with Washington State's biggest school district told a 4th grade elementary school teacher that a student's pronoun change should not be shared with parents, regardless of age, unless the student consents, according to emails obtained by Fox News Digital. In March of last year, a Seattle Education Association board member and 4th grade teacher reached out to Seattle Public Schools to request a training at an SPS school on LGBTQ best practices. This, according to emails that Fox News obtained in a public records request. Quote, "It came to my attention here that staff administration have disagreed about how to best support non-binary students. I asked administration whether we could have training for best practices." This from John Shaw, writing to Lisa Love, the manager of Health Education Department at SPS. That happened March 1st of last year. The Hawaii Department of Education trains future therapists to conceal conversations with LGBTQ youth from parents. The training is called Affirming Practices with LGBTQ plus Youth and obtained by Fox News through a Freedom of Information Act request. It was delivered to staff and graduate students at the university on the 5th of May, by 2 members of the Hawaii Department of Child Health and Adolescent Mental Health Division's Safe Spaces Committee. The presenters were Kimberly Allen, chair of the Safe Space Committee, and Robin Lee, a member of the committee. The quote, "Be careful about what you document. Parents may be able to access the information," said the presentation in a slide. That same slide told viewers to, quote, "Be aware of Hawaii's age of consent for mental health services law for youth 14 and over. It should always be the LGBTQ plus person's decision to whom and when they disclose their orientation or identity. Being LGBTQ plus is not a safety risk, but being out could be." Out of the economy, this breaking news, the U.S. economy grew solidly last quarter rather, and remained well clear of a recession despite the Federal Reserve's pushing interest rates higher. This from the Wall Street Journal. Gross domestic product grew at a seasonally and inflation-adjusted annual rate of 2.4 in the second quarter, picking up slightly from 2% growth in the first 3 months of this year, according to the Commerce Department. Consumer spending also grew this spring, but at a slower pace for both goods and services. Business investment has strengthened from April through June, with companies spending solidly on buildings and equipment. With this, the Federal Reserve raised its key interest rate by 0.25 point yesterday and signaled another hike is at least on the table, if not likely, in coming months. This from USA Today. The move nudged the federal funds rate to a range of 5.25% to 5.5%, the highest level in 22 years. In a statement after a two-day meeting, the Fed repeated that the determination of the extent of additional policy firming, that is, rate increases, that will be appropriate to lower inflation to the Fed's 2% target will hinge on inflation as well as economic and financial developments, among other factors. That suggests another rate increase is likely in September or November, Barclays wrote in a note to clients last week. Another hike would have been less likely if the central bank had reverted to language in a prior statement that referred to, quote, the extent to which additional policy firming may be appropriate. Elsewhere in economic news, Anheuser-Busch is laying off employees. They said yesterday they will lay off positions across its U.S. corporate staff. In a statement, an Anheuser-Busch spokesman said the restructuring will simplify and reduce layers within the organization. It will not include frontline staff, such as brewery and warehouse personnel, drivers, field sales, among others. The job eliminations represent less than 2% of the Anheuser-Busch U.S. employee population, the statement said. The company's website said it employs more than 19,000 employees nationwide. 2% of that figure would work out to about 380 positions. And finally, from Fox News, it is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved Sinead O'Connor, according to the singer's family. The statement was reported yesterday by the BBC and RTE. Her family and friends are devastated and have requested privacy at this very difficult time. No cause of death has been revealed, and we note and mourn the death of Sinead O'Connor. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. As you may notice, if you're watching, we have a technical glitch of some kind. Our video is taking this segment off, and I don't know why.